Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Okay, so last night Omaha beat St. Thomas to win the Summit. There are plenty of Penn State connections with St. Thomas because Phil Eston, who had been here, and Phil's a great administrator, better guy. Jamal Griffin, who's one of the, in fact, I saw Jamal when Penn State played football at Minnesota. Jamal, of course, was here as well. They have helped, the two of them along with many others, bring St. Thomas from Division III to Division I.
Which is a humongous leap.
Right? John Tower is in his 14th year as the head coach at St. Thomas. He was, 14 years ago, a psychology professor and doubled as the basketball coach. Under the archaic rules that we, again,
The NCAA
it is amazing that the NCAA, it's just they can't get out of their own way. Will you just adapt to the times?
Yeah.
Now, Omaha won, so it doesn't matter.
But
St. Thomas, if they had won, would not have been eligible for the NCAA tournament because of the transition period.
yes.
Either you can play or you can't.
Make it make sense. There should be may I offer a solution here? There should be a transition period to get into the NCAA Division I versus after you're in it. So to get in the Division I, you should be able to meet requirements, which they clearly did.
All you have to do is meet requirements.
So they met requirements to get in, so why aren't they good enough to just start them?
Right.
Like what?
Okay, now if you were, where you would be held back would be in most transitions, you still have some games on your schedule
Yes.
that are not Division I games. For example, when Lemoyne made the transition to Division I, one of the teams they played right away was Penn State.
Yeah.
And then they played Georgia. I think they played Georgetown before they played Penn State. But then if you looked at their schedule, you're like, okay. But if you're playing in a conference schedule, especially in a one-bid league,
Yes.
if you win the conference tournament, you should be able to go.
Yeah.
I'm not saying pick them as an at-large team because nobody in the Summit has ever been an at-large team.
Yeah. You'd have to be undefeated to have a chance.
They just get out of the way. Okay? The NCAA needs to get out of the way. Stop with the archaic rules. I mean, you want to know why Pete Maravich doesn't have 6,000 points in his career?
Why is that, Steve?
Because he wasn't allowed to play as a freshman. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was not allowed to play as a freshman. Oh, and by the way, couldn't dunk.
Yeah.
It was against the rules.
Which is funny considering he could dunk a basketball blindfolded with one leg tied to the other one.
Right? They do everything at a snail's pace.
Yep.
Right? And just get out of the way. Okay? I don't mind that there are rules. Okay? I could see them putting in a rule, hey, in the NCAA tournament, you have to play X amount of Division I schools to be considered for an at-large.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't going to matter. They're in the Summit League. The Summit has had exactly 0 at-large bids. Now, it doesn't matter. Omaha was the number one team in that conference all season long.
The Mavericks won their way there.
And Omaha won their way in. So, in the end, it doesn't matter. It sorted itself out nicely. Okay?
Yeah.
But
the fact that Omaha went into the game knowing they were already in the tournament, which was the whole deal, because I believe the game for St. Thomas had happened first, So as soon as Omaha won that semifinal game, they knew they were in the tournament.
Right.
So it basically meant that final game didn't matter as much.
Right.
Didn't matter almost at all, except just for a game for the players to not get hurt in, basically, is what happened.
Right, exactly. So last night, Wofford won its way in. They won the SoCon. Sunbelt was won by Troy, beat Arkansas State. Jerry refers to them as Arkansas.
Steve, I do have a question for you,
Yes.
speaking of teams.
Tonight, St. Mary's will play Gonzaga.
Yeah, which is going to be a good game.
Yeah.
You know what else goes on today, Steve? A game with a team that went 1-11 down the stretch and now finds themselves at 16-19 with a chance to go to the NCAA tournament. The Delaware Blue Hens went 1-11 in the CAA. With their first of those 11 losses was against Hofstra. This game was on January 23rd in Hempstead, New York. They won one game against William and Mary and then found their way as, I believe, the 12th seed in the CAA out of, I believe, 14 total teams.
Yikes.
They then rattled off 4 wins against Stony Brook, Campbell, William Mary, and the 1 seed Towson, and now find themselves against UNC Wilmington in the final, have a chance to go to the NCAA tournament at 17-19. This is why I love March Madness, Steve. This is why I love the basketball tournaments when they come around. This is why.
Oh, this is why Penn State. Okay, I haven't talked about this.
Oh, the Big Ten and ACC?
Right. I mean, this is the Big Ten's version of relegation. I don't know what it is. When they came out with this, I don't know, 9 months ago, I was adamantly against it. Not because I thought Penn State would be in this position. I didn't think Penn State was going to be in this position. I thought Penn State was going to finish between 7 and 10.
Yeah.
At worst.
Yeah, and then they found themselves in this position
worst.
where them, Nebraska, and Washington miss out.
You are a conference awash in cash. You can't afford to have everybody there? I know. Okay. Don't tell me, this has always been the running joke that Sean Morris, Dick Girardi, and I have had, right? And I believe because you've been at a couple of dinners now, you've heard this. The running joke we have is, quote, it's all about the kids.
Yeah.
Now, for the Mike Rhodes, the James Franklins, the Pat Crafts of the world, it is about the kids. Right? For the conferences, for the NCAA, there is no way in heck it's about the kids.
No.
No way. Big Ten, you don't like it? Excuse me, you got 45 players sitting at home right now because it's not about the kids. It's not about Delaware getting to the championship game of the Colonial. Okay? It's not about the kids. Okay?
Doesn't make sense.
Okay. Of the 3 teams out, first of all, Washington played almost everybody tough down the stretch, including an overtime game with Oregon. Right? Penn State won 3 of its last 5. Okay? Nebraska slumped down the stretch. Okay? Don't tell me it's about the kids. It is not at the conference level or the NCAA about the kids. It's about contracts. It's about money. It's about money. It's about contracts.
You know what the funniest thing here is,
and
Steve?
This conference is got a has the money is flowing off a conveyor belt.
Yeah. I'm sitting here staring at the men's tournament bracket for the Big Ten. I have it pulled up in front of me. All you have to do, if you're the Big Ten, is add in one extra game to decide who gets in, because you have currently the top 4 seeds get the double bye. The top 5 seeds get the one bye. So what you do, instead of 5 teams, you make that 4 teams. You knock one team down a peg. So it's 4, 4.
Sure.
And then everyone else that adds, you then add in an extra game. So then all of a sudden there's one more team added in, and then add another play-in somewhere else with the 2 lowest seeds. Maybe 17 and 18 have to play to get in against the top of that first tier. And all of a sudden you add in
What?
2 new teams.
But you don't want to rent the
building
building
somewhere else.
You don't want to rent the building for one more night? Because there's only three. There are only 3 games coming up. What, tomorrow?
Yeah,
3 games tomorrow.
you have Northwestern Minnesota, Iowa, Ohio State, USC, Rutgers. You add in 2 games to get into that bottom round. That adds in 3 teams because you add in the 1 games to get into where like the Indiana Oregon bracket is. You add 1 there. You had 2 in before.
You can't rent the building one more night.
It's crazy.
Okay,
it would solve literally the entire problem.
Okay, your conference is a cash register.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have the building one more night.
It does not make sense. It does not make any sense at all.
Of course it doesn't make sense. But don't ever tell me it's about the kids. It's not about the kids.
No.
Okay? For James Franklin, Mike Rhodes, Jeff Cook, Erica Dombach, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is about the kids. Mike Gamboni, it's all about the kids. Yeah. Okay? For Pat Kraft, it's all about the kids. It is. That's why they do the fundraising and everything they do, because they want to make sure they get what they need. The conferences and the NCAA especially, okay? Don't ever tell me it's about the kids. You guys are all about cash registers, and the kids are a means to an end.
And you know what?
Okay, they're a means to an end. Yeah. That's all it is.
You know what makes me laugh is when you hear that. You hear like, oh, it was for the kids, all these things. You don't want to destroy their legs, injure them. Steve, yesterday, I believe it was 15 years ago, I think is the number, 20 or 14 years ago, the 2011 Big East tournament happened. What does UConn do? They they play on Tuesday.
Yeah.
They win against DePaul.
Yep.
They play on Wednesday. They win against Georgetown.
Yep.
They play on Thursday.
Yep.
They win against Pitt. They then win on Friday against Syracuse. They then win on Saturday against Louisville to win the whole thing. At that point, they're playing the best basketball. They then, I don't know, less than a week later go on and start their tournament run, win the whole freaking thing.
Yeah, if Penn State had won in Tucson, UConn would have been their matchup in San Diego.
You don't think they could have added in 1 extra game in there? At that point, like, they've already played these number of games. Their legs are already gone anyway. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, the whole point is tournament season is never going to be easy. Like, that's the whole idea, is it's always a crazy road for the teams that are the lowest seeds to make their way there. But every so often, a UConn does it and then goes on to win the whole frickin' thing.
Well, VCU with Mike as an assistant coach, they went from a first 4 in. Like, I don't mind them debating whether to go to 76 teams. That doesn't bother me in the least. I mean, because there's a depth of college basketball right now where you can legitimize it. But don't be the Big Ten Conference. Okay, you're not the Summit League.
Yes.
You're not the Horizon, where you're like, okay, we've got one bid. The NCAA is going to be reducing, because of the House settlement, the amount of money our conference is getting. That part I get. Okay? But you've got a multi-million-dollar, you have a $1 billion deal, which 10 years ago you wouldn't have thought you were going to get. And you're telling 3 teams they got to stay home. But don't tell me it's about the kids.
Are there any other conferences outside of the ACC and the Big Ten? Those 2 are the only 2 that do it, correct?
Right.
So every other team in D1, bar 6,
because
have a chance to make March Madness, regardless of the season.
Because I want to say the ACC has 17 with Notre Dame.
With Notre Dame, I believe
or
they
have
18. 17. We're gonna find out in a second. But the point is, you have all these teams. How many teams are in Division I for basketball?
364.
364. 364 teams. Only 6 don't have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. 6 don't have it. Everyone else has a chance, bar 6 of them. That's absurd. I'm sorry. Like, the whole point is everyone has a chance to make it. Again, Delaware came into the tournament 12-19, and they could go to the freaking tournament.
I mean, again, if this were the Patriot League, and the Patriot League for whatever reason had 18 schools, and they said we're keeping 3 out, I'd be sitting there like going, well, fiscally that makes sense because look, like you can't keep using buildings left and right to do something like this when you only get one bid and the NCAA is going to be reducing your take because of the House settlement. Now, it's not going to be a gigantic drop, but it's still going to be a little bit of a drop, which affects them exponentially more than it does at Penn State. But this is a multiple bid league. They're going to get 10 in the NCAAs. When they brought the 4 in, somebody asked me how many bids could the Big Ten get just by doing the expansion. I said 11. Well, they're going to get 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means everybody's going to get more money. You can't rent out the building one more night? No. I mean, now maybe, I don't know what the Pacers' schedule is.
By the way, the ACC with Notre Dame has 18. So they're at the same spot the Big Ten is.
Okay.
The Pacers currently have been on the road. They have a game tonight against the Bucks.
And that game is where?
That game is in Indiana.
Okay. See, now, I'd like to point out.
Yeah.
You could play 5 games tomorrow, but that's awfully difficult.
But what the thought here is, for me, is you see all the time the Lakers and Clippers for years had the Oscars tour, the Grammys tour, whichever one it is, where they'd be gone for 2 weeks on road trips because they have a contract already in place with insert organization here for a one-day event that requires days of setup.
I will say this, with Indiana, this before Oregon and Washington were put in, they already had the contract to play here. Okay.
Yeah.
So with the Pacers playing tonight at home,
it messes with the timeline.
Right.
I get it.
So you'd have to put 5 in one day. But I'm telling you right now, there's going to be like, hey, this worked. No, it didn't work.
No. And the fact that you're sitting here with, you have Miami, BC, NC State, Nebraska, Washington, and Penn State are the only 6 teams in the entirety of Division I who did not actually have a chance at the end of the day to make the NCAA tournament. You and I have talked about this quite a lot, both on air and off air, that yes, everyone, at the end of the day, what matters is the blue bloods and the big teams and the ratings in terms of how far the Dukes, North Carolinas, Kentuckys, these teams get, because they're the ones drive up ratings and give us more viewers and all these things.
No
Am
doubt.
I wrong in saying that? It's fair?
Of course. No. That makes a big difference.
But part of what the NCAA tournament has turned into, which is a lot of fans appreciate and love, is for the Cinderella. That's what we always want to see, is a Cinderella make it there. Even a UConn, who at that time were the top, around the 25th spot in the nation, but they won their way there. They weren't going to get in. They were on their way there through the Big Ten tournament. Or you go back to Butler with Gordon Hayward, who found their way there as a mid-major team, almost a bounce away, an inch away from knocking off Duke.
Micah Shrewsbury.
Yes, exactly. We was
an assistant coach on that team. So next year's game is going to be, next year's tournament's at Indianapolis. I'm sorry, my apologies. Next year's tournament, my apologies, is in Chicago.
It's in Chicago, so it's
Center.
in the United Center where the Bulls play.
Yes. Then 27 is back in Indianapolis. Then in 28,
where is it?
T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Oh, boy. Interesting. Well, maybe by then LeBron's retired and has a Vegas basketball team.
Yeah.
But you see my problem here.
Turning Girardi loose in Las Vegas.
Not going to go well.
Oh, no, it does. We've done the Vegas thing before.
I'll have to be there to parent him.
No, you'll be along for the ride.
I
just follow the lead. Now, look, actually, he doesn't gamble.
No, yeah.
It's just horses.
Yeah, I've never gambled. I've
No, I've never gambled.
One sports bet in my entire life. So, one sports bet, and I've bet on a horse once.
The Saints to win it all last year.
No, it was a random game in 2022. I bet on Donovan Mitchell. I bet on the Jazz to win a game in Donovan Mitchell, and they were already at that point taking the starters out for the season. I forgot what it was. It was something weird. But the point here is I'm 1-0 on horse bets and 0-1 on sports bets. So I'm even. I'm even on that one. So I'm cool with leaving it there at 500. But again, the point here is you could easily expand it. If you add in one more day, you expand it out, you add in these 3 teams. If you're the Big Ten and you're the ACC, it's not rocket science. And if the Grammys or the Oscars can do it with the Crypto.com arena,
it's about the kids.
It's about the kids, Steve. You know what kids are making a lot of money right now? NFL stars. Making a lot of money, Steve. A lot of money. So let's start with the quarterback market real quick.
Have the Saints made any moves?
The Saints, outside of re-signing Chase Young, we traded for Davon Godchaux, and that was about it. Quarterbacks. Quarterbacks where I want to start, Steve.
Brutal.
I know. So we, of course, discussed Josh Allen's deal already to re-sign with the Bills for 6 years, $330 million. The Miami Dolphins quarterback situation, of course, as Tua Tagovailoa is going to miss games, as he does every season. His backup, Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. He's back up there. Josh Dobbs, the backup in New
What
England.
have I said multiple times?
What was that?
Your first 3-round pick, you have to play your way out of the league.
Mm-hmm.
4 through 7, or a free agent, you have to play your way into the league. In other words, for that second contract. Wilson's going to bounce around all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, well, he's the second overall pick. He's got to have some talent.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, he is now the backup in Miami. Josh Dobbs is the backup in New England to Drake May. The Jets signed Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million with $30 guaranteed. So he's got a 5-year base salary this season, 15 guaranteed this season as a bonus, and then $20 million next season guaranteed.
Do you know what cracks me up about that? Is that you have people with the Jets excited.
Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah.
That they got him. I'm not going, have you watched the video?
Mm-hmm. I'm not a Jets fan. I grew up in New England. I had to deal with Jets fans, Giants fans, Patriots fans. I'm at least happy that they are not signing a 40-year-old quarterback again and getting themselves excited about it. At least this way it could be a young player and be something new for them to lose about. That brings me a little joy.
The only thing I will say about him signing with them is the familiarity he's going to have with Gerrit Wilson and now the recently signed Chris Olave.
Which is pretty... Huh? Olave's a Saint.
No, Olave's a Jet.
Olave's a Saint. What? Don't say that. Don't scare me. Is Chris Olave a Jet now?
You can look it up.
Uh-oh. He's a Saint. He has been. Now I'm terrified. You know, Olave's a Saint.
He's going to the Jets.
No, he's not. That's not happening.
Yeah, he is.
I pray we don't do that.
No, he's going to he's going to Jets.
If we trade Olave to the Jets, I think I'll just break down in tears and cry.
Well, you want me to get you some tissues?
I will need tissues, thank you.
Gone.
By the way, I have a question for you.
A Jet.
Who's a better quarterback? Who's going to be a better quarterback this season? Justin Fields with the Jets or Kenny Pickett with the Cleveland Browns? He's going to start for them because they don't have Deshaun Watson, and they're clearly not going to draft the quarterback at number 2. It is the Kenny Pickett-led Cleveland Browns are going to make their way into Pittsburgh against the Steelers. How fun is that going to be, Steve? That about explains it.
Just it tells you how difficult the position is, because Justin Fields is a career backup. Kenny Pickett is a career backup.
Yep.
Daniel Jones is a career backup.
Correct.
And guess what? They're all playing big roles with the new teams that they have.
Daniel Jones just signed his 1-year, $14 million deal with the Indianapolis Colts to be the quote-unquote challenger to Anthony Richardson.
Well,
interesting.
That'll be quite the
Other quarterback news, Nick Mullins is now in Jacksonville as Trevor Lawrence's backup. Jarrett Stidham is the backup in Denver. Of course, Geno Smith already is with the Raiders when it comes to quarterbacking. Tommy DeVito back in New York with the Giants, who have made a boatload of moves. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is now going the other way in the Kenny Pickett trade to the Eagles, who've made a ton of moves as well, who we'll discuss in a second. Other quarterback news outside of it, not too much outside of, what's going on with Minnesota and who's going to be their quarterback, because the main guy they thought they'd have, Mr. Sam Darnold, is now on his way to Seattle, where he'll be for 3 years, $100-some-odd million, which now means with him gone and his third stringer, Daniel Jones, gone, it is J.J. McCarthy's team with an asterisk. Aaron Rodgers, is he going to complete the Brett Favre saga, Steve?
He could go to the Steelers.
But Steve, imagine for a moment the three teams Brett Favre plays for.
I don't think
Aaron Rodgers plays for those three teams as well.
I think
I
think he wants to stay away from that.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? I find joy in that.
The money thrown around today
is expansive, to say the least. I do want to get to the Eagles, though. Of course, we're here in Pennsylvania. The Eagles have made a few moves. They made this Pickett trade. They then, with the Texans, who have made a lot of moves we're going to break down in a second, traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson and a sixth in 2026 for Kenyon Green, former first-round pick, and a fifth-round pick from the Texans. So they now get themselves a guard who's going to probably play that right guard slot where Mekhi Becton played, signaling to a lot of people that Becton might not be re-signing in Philadelphia.
Right. Plus, it looks like the Steelers are zeroing in on Darius Big Play Slay or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever he wants to call himself this hour. Did they ever tell you the Ahmad Rashad story?
You have not.
Okay. Darius Big Play Slay. That's what I want to be called. How about over here? No.
Yeah.
How about just Darius? The Bills draft Ahmad Rashad out of Oregon. Bud Tallman is with the Bills. And they say, Bud, could you give him a call, coach? And so forth. It may have been Luke Saban, may have been the coach. All right. And just want to talk to him. So there's a number. So Bud calls the number.
Yeah.
And woman answers the phone. She says, is Ahmad there? She says, who? Ahmad. Ahmad? No. He said, we're trying to reach Ahmad Rashad. And she goes, oh. Bobby, get over here. Right? It was Ahmad Rashad's mother. And his given name was Bobby Moore. And she didn't give... She's like, who are you trying to talk to? Talk to Mom. Mom was like, I'm not buying. Now, I think eventually Mom bought.
Yeah.
But at that hour, she's like, oh. I guess, but she was like, oh, like, ugh. What the heck?
Can I ask you a question, Steve?
No.
If you have a top-tier talented quarterback, what would you suggest is something you'd want to do for that quarterback? Protect him, right?
Well, I want to get him a left tackle, and I want to get him some wideouts.
Sure. So the Commanders have done that. They've added receivers. They've added offensive linemen. They traded for Laramie Tunsil from the Texans.
Right.
One of the best left tackles in the league. They're like, let's get C.J. Stroud hit more. Is that a good plan, Steve? What do you think?
It depends. It depends on what they're thinking at that spot in the draft. Because to me, free agency or trades set up your draft. Now, the Texans are going to draft down because they are a playoff team.
They're sitting with the 25th overall pick in the first round.
But they may feel there's somebody that they can get in that spot, or there's somebody they can sign in that spot in free agency.
The only left tackle of note in free agency was Ronnie Stanley, who, of course, returned to Ravens.
Baltimore. Yeah.
And they have now made...
Dan Moore got more money than Stanley. I'm like going, really? All credit to his agent on that one.
It has been a weird, because the free agency class isn't humongous. The people waiting for the quarterback dominoes to fall, but they weren't giant. A lot of it was restructures, re-signings, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Josh Allen, like waiting for these guys to fall in line. Mm-hmm. Now CJ is going to Houston from the Eagles. We've got these trades happening left and right, but I don't. If they don't attempt to replace Tunsil with a really good left tackle, I don't get this move, because you sit here. Part of the problem last season was, outside of Tunsil, Stroud was getting destroyed because he had no other O-line protection. Now you get rid of the guy you need the most on his blind side, and you're like, let's get rid of him.
Well,
blows my mind.
Over the years, the brilliance of an Anthony Munoz, a Jonathan Ogden, where teams knew the value over and over again of that person and how they played their position. Okay, that's why the longevity with one team happened the way it did.
Yeah,
and you look at Williams with the 49ers. Washington let him go. Now that's the Daniel Snyder Washington.
Yes, Trent Williams.
Right. And now they've done this. Look, I'll say this: Washington. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm sitting there going, okay. They added a wide receiver that's really good. They added a left tackle that's really good. Their quarterback's just going to get better.
They brought in Javon Kinlaw on the D-line, who's pretty good for 3 years, $45 million.
Washington is going for it. I admire that. The Giants are going for it, but they're just trying to go for it to get the third place.
They're trying. So I saw a joke, of course. So the Giants are signing all these players. They've signed James Hudson, 2 years, $12 million on the O-line. Chauncey Golston, 3 years, $19.5 million.
I think the Giants are rolling the dice.
Yes.
That Abdul Carter gets picked.
Yes.
Right,
and
before them.
May I make a point, which I think you'll appreciate? Darius Slayton.
Yeah, they re-signed him.
3 years, $36 million. Do you know whose touchdown pass he caught? The final one of Eli Manning's career.
Yeah.
You know whose touchdown he could catch next year? The first one of Arch Manning's career.
Well, he could, yeah.
Sometimes there's some comedy I find in the NFL, and that's where I find the comedy.
But see, I wonder if the Giants are rolling the dice that somebody, Tennessee, Cleveland, takes Abdul Carter, which then opens the door for them. Do they draft third?
They draft third. Right. It's the Titans,
which
Browns,
then opens the door for them to take either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, which one is still available.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rolling the dice on Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
I don't know. The
Giants also made deals, by the way, for Javon Holland, 3 years, $45 million. Good safety. Paulson Adebo, Saints cornerback, 3 years, $54 million. Adebo is incredible. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But they're making these deals, and they're sitting here with their only quarterback being Tommy DeVito.
Well, that's why I say they're rolling the dice on Abdul Carter.
But
in
if
other words, that Carter gets picked before.
If that is their bet on Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and they're sitting there waiting, and you're making all these signatures, you are literally wasting a year. And they're going to try and bank then on next year having the top pick to get Drew Aller, Arch Manning, whatever quarterback it is at one.
Well, but if they
take a wild gamble.
But if they take a quarterback, and they like what they see, they don't have to take a quarterback next year.
But if they miss if that quarterback is then bad, it then means it's one more year of them having to sit there. And then next year, the question is going to be asked again, as it has of multiple teams in the past, are you going to keep this guy or trade him. If I'm not mistaken, when was Josh Rosen drafted? Was he 2016?
Yeah, he was part of that.
He was part of that
massive.
And then he was 2015-16 draft. And then he got, if I'm not mistaken, a year later, traded away because they took Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. That it was like a 1-year thing, and they were like, that wouldn't work well. We have the first pick, maybe Kyler Murray. Right. And that's what they're setting the Giants themselves up to do again, is they're sitting there, let's say they take Cam Ward, and let's say it doesn't work out like the Josh Rosen thing did. Then they get there.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, Cam Ward is a better quarterback than Josh Rosen.
By the way, Josh Rosen, I believe, is getting his MBA, and is like, he's like in law school.
I remember watching him at UCLA, and like he had moments, but I don't need to draft a quarterback who has moments. I need to draft a quarterback that plays at a high level and is consistent with that level, in which he was not. Cam Ward has been, to his credit, he's been consistently at a high level.
Josh Rosen currently, by the way, per his LinkedIn, is an MBA candidate at the Wharton School. So shout out to Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing. It's awesome. His experience listed on his profile as NFL.
Perfect. Perfect.
Pretty good business experience. Only so many people can say they were drafted in the first round as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
But all of these things are happening. We still, of course, don't know about Aaron Rodgers, what the deal with him is, which is the fact that we're waiting on him is crazy to sign with someone, whether it's going to be if he signs with Pittsburgh, if he signs in Minnesota. We're waiting on that news to happen, waiting for the Saints, as you mentioned, to sign literally anybody. I'm hurting, Steve. I'm hurting.
A lot of people are making some money. And by the way, let's give Will Fries credit. Will ended up getting a 5-year, $88 million deal with the Vikings. He's just one of those guys that it's just a great guy. Worked hard here, gets himself into the league, and is still in the league and gets a contract like that. He played very well, by the way, at with the Colts to put himself in this position. So if Will Fries, I'm happy for him. Chris Godwin re-signed with the Bucks for 3 years.
A lot of big deals rolling around.
Yeah, so we just figured we'd throw those in there for you while you're ranting about irrelevant people.
Vikings, by the way, in terms of the business they've done in this window, of course, they did not bring back Sam Darnold. It looks like it's J.J. McCarthy's team. They have brought back Aaron Jones, 2 years, $20 million. Not a terrible contract.
It's fine.
Okay. Will Fries, as you mentioned, 5 years, 88. Ryan Kelly, also from the Colts, 2 years, $18 million. Not a bad deal. Jonathan Allen, who got released by the Commanders, 3 years, 60. Byron Murphy re-signed, 3 years, 66 at the cornerback slot. Theo Jackson, 2 years, 12.5 as an extension. And then Ryan Wright, the punter, 1 year, $2 million. So they're bringing back some players, making good signings. They're adding to their team. And they, of course, are sitting here with their quarterback pretty much set up for them because they know it's going to be J.J. McCarthy now. They know that.
We're going to have to see what happens with them because, first of all, I want to say O'Connell's a good coach.
Yes.
I want to give credit where credit is due but that game against Detroit
was bad.
Was not a great is not a great
and the game against the Rams.
Well, no, I think it set up the Rams because now they had to play on the road. They had to go to Glendale and play that game.
And as we've discussed, Sam Darnold got beaten to a pulp in that one.
I mean, it's just
get rid of the ball, all these things. But that's why I add Will Fries is to be a guard to not let that happen. So they're trying to protect J.J. McCarthy. They've got a good center in Ryan Kelly. They got a good guard in Will Fries. They have a decent O-line around it. They're making additions, and they have a 24th pick in the draft this season. So who knows what they could do with that one. A lot of players they can go and grab in the draft this coming season. I'll be intrigued by the draft now because, of course, with how the NFL does it, where free agency shapes your draft almost, where now we know, hypothetically, the Seahawks are not going to draft a quarterback in the first round because they just
Yeah, right. That's yeah.
But then we say that, and last year the Falcons explode our minds and pay Kirk Cousins 4 years,
but again,
whatever amount of money it was in draft.
But the Seahawks did not sign a quarterback coming off an Achilles.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the big difference there.
But now we're sitting here with this draft class, and again, still at the top of this draft, it's going to be Abdul Carter, it's going to be Travis Hunter, it's going to be probably Cam Ward, somewhere in that top 3, I would presume.
Abdul Carter.
Yeah, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and then Cam Ward. And then outside of that, you've got a lot of players who can go kind of anywhere in this first round. A lot of players go up, go down. We've seen a lot of players' draft stocks change, whether it's Jahdae Barron from Texas, the cornerback who's looked good, the Georgia edge rushers, Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. Like a lot of players at a lot of positions that if you're a team and you say, let's say you're sitting there, Steve, and you are the Raiders. You're sitting there at 6.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a quarterback in Geno Smith. Mm-hmm. You don't need a quarterback right now.
Right.
You can say to yourselves, let's go take position of best player available. You already have your tight end in Brock Bowers, dude who set records last season.
Right.
Tyler Warren's not for you. But you know what? Maybe we need a running back. Maybe we just take Ashton Genty and say, screw it. Like, he's the best player available on our board. Good. We want him. Or let's say you're sitting there as the Panthers at 8. Take whoever you want. Like, this is going to be a really funky draft where normally we're so used to the quarterbacks being the top slots. And yeah, Cam Ward's going to probably go top 3. Where Shador goes, we don't really know now because if he doesn't go top 3, the Patriots don't need a quarterback. The Jaguars probably don't. The Raiders probably won't take him. The Jets probably not. They just paid Justin Fields. They're probably not going to go quarterback at 7 because I think New Jersey might explode. Carolina, no. Like, you just scroll down the list and you're like, I don't see where he goes. Maybe the Saints take him. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to take Shador Sanders. I think we're going to bottom out and try and get Drew Aller or Arch Manning next season. And then after that, it's a question mark. And then you got him and you got Jackson Dart sitting there at the bottom of the first round. And at that point, as we've mentioned, Jackson Dart's going to be a pretty good player in the NFL. If he's there and Shador's there, it's going to be really interesting.
I think Dart will be not great, but I think he will be a good player in the NFL. I think he will not be a first-round pick in all likelihood. Mm-hmm. I know he combined well, but we'll see about that.
A lot of funkiness in the NFL. Of course, the draft is a month and a half away.
You mentioned, you didn't mention Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, my bad. Broadway Jimmy is
Rams.
Re-signing with the Rams. Rams. Dre Greenlaw has landed in Denver. They made some interesting moves throughout the window. You've seen a bunch of players kind of across the board. Travarius Ward, I believe, is a Colt now. So he signed there. Ife Melifonwu from Syracuse signed with the Miami Dolphins. Andre Sisco, also from Cuse, went from the Jaguars to the Jets. 1 year, $10 million. You act like I don't know the Syracuse players who are in the NFL, Steve. I watched all these guys in college, okay? I was in the same place they were.
How many Syracuse guys signed? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, you know what? They're in the NFL, and that's what matters. They made it, and I'm happy for them.
Are their teams happy with them?
Andre Sisco got $10 million a year. It's not chump change. It's not a bad thing. You're giggling at me over there. By the way, 1 year ago today, the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley on a contract. Yeah. How'd that work out for them?
Yeah, and but the DJ Metcalf deal,
or DK Metcalf,
tells me a lot about what the Steelers are thinking. If they sign Slay, that tells me a lot about what the Steelers are thinking. Mm-hmm. And now the question is going to be, what do they do with the quarterback? I mean, what's interesting about the Rodgers thing is this. 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, got to have him. I'm talking about the fans. Well, you have fans in cities that don't want him in their city.
Yeah.
They don't want him.
No.
it's when you're that age coming off an Achilles, you lose a little bit.
Yes.
Like a little bit. Now, I will say this, that should he play this year, which I think he will, he will be, while older, 2 years removed from the Achilles, which makes a big difference.
Yes.
Being 2 years on an Achilles, you can play the year later. You don't quite have the same pop. You're probably in the 75% area after a year with an Achilles, just based on watching players that have had to come back from this up close. But the second year, they've got it all the way back. And I think that the Achilles today is the ACL surgery of 30 years ago.
Yes.
Where you could play a year later, you'd be good, functional, but boy, 2 years after that, you've got your old pop back. I mean, ACL surgeries are so much better now.
Yeah.
Achilles isn't quite like that yet because of the nature of, because, the part of the body it's in.
Yeah. By the way, I know we mentioned it yesterday at the end of the show. It has now been confirmed as of late yesterday afternoon. Right-hander Gerrit Cole will undergo Tommy John surgery and be out for the 2025 season.
I feel awful about that. I am, as you know, doesn't matter if I'm a Red Sox fan. Who cares? I am all about. I hate injuries. I hate guys being out. And because of that, but I don't care how much money he makes. I don't care what team he pitches for.
Yeah.
I don't want to see this. No way. I feel terrible for him. It does go back to something on a tangent here about what I've talked about idealism versus realism. And I've always said idealistically, I would never sign a position player for more than 5 years, and I would never sign a pitcher for 3 years, more than 3 years.
Yeah.
More than 3. Realistically, I can't do that. Okay, but
we don't live in the realistic
world. But I've said that. To me, it's like one of those, like, okay, like, I don't think you can go.
Yeah.
And I don't care whether it's Gerrit Cole or Dustin Pedroia. Pedroia signed an 8-year contract. Well, did he fulfill the 8 years? He got paid for 8 years. Right? Yeah. But that happened. Albert Pujols, the 10-year deal. Robinson Cano. Now you look at pitchers. I mean, we gave him a 5-year deal. They got 2 out of him. Right, Cole's. I don't know how long the Cole deal is. It's $36 million a year.
He opted out and then just signed a 4-year, $144 million deal. This offseason, so he was now on a 4-year, $144, and then in his 2 spring training outings, after he was on the 9-year, $324 million deal in 2019, which would have kept him there, of course, until 2028, if he had not voided out of his contract early. So he was still basically signed through 2028 for all intents and purposes. So it was a 9-year deal. He made it halfway through, or a little more than halfway through, and then tore his UCL, it looks like.
And again, he can't help. He can't help that. Okay, no. I've got that. I mean, it happens. And part of it is these guys, that's all they do is throw hard these days. I mean, they don't do a lot of pitching anymore. It's amazing when the guy doesn't have great velocity and is trying to pitch their way around things. Well, he doesn't, because everybody gets enamored with velocity, and that's I don't know. And that's why I think we're seeing more and more of these. I'll never forget 10 years ago, pre-COVID, I heard of people saying that they would like to see if their kids should get Tommy John surgery before an injury.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that makes 0 sense.
Yeah.
So one day at practice, I was talking to Wayne Sebastianelli, and I brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yeah, I heard the same thing. He says, I said, well, what do you think of that? He says, it's insane. He says, it's not, it's an uninvasive surgery. He says, you're cutting into somebody to do something. He says, why would you do it when you don't need it?
Yeah. It is never good to go into someone's body for a surgery. It is never a good thing.
Who comes up with all these stupid ideas? My goodness! I mean,
may I give you a recommendation? Who I believe it is, Steve?
I think they should apply for a job with the NCAA.
I was gonna make the joke. I was gonna say I think the NCAA is the ones who are coming up with these ideas.
I was like, By the way, DeMarco Dunn was the Big Ten Player of the Week,
as he deserved. Dude played absolutely.
There was a week where Yannick Conan Niederhauser rang up all these numbers. 2 incredible games. Yeah, Dick said, he says, "What do you think, Player of the Week?" I said, and what team does he play for? I said, these guys are going to,
Yeah, but he won Player of the Week. In terms of NCAA games going on today that are going to be deciding.
These are conference tournament games.
They're going to be deciding the conferences. Mm-hmm. As you've mentioned so far, the championship's going on. Delaware, UNC Wilmington in the finals of the CAA championship at 7 o'clock. And then the Northeast Conference, the NEC, St. Francis against Central Connecticut.
Again, Krimmel, Rob Krimmel, State College's own, coaching St. Francis, trying to get him into the NCAA.
St. Francis, by the way, in a similar situation to Delaware, 15-17 on the season, and they could go to the finals. They're playing in New Britain, Connecticut.
Where are they playing?
They're playing in New Britain and Dietrich Gymnasium.
Yeah. Look. It doesn't matter if they're 15 and 17 because that includes all the non-conference games. All right.
No, I know, but it's just like
It's what did they do in the NEC?
In the NEC, they were.
They're probably above.
8-8.
Yeah,
they were in the middle of the pack.
That's good.
They were in fourth, and then you have the Horizon League Championship, Youngstown State versus Robert Morris. That's going on in Corteva.
Bobby Moe. Bobby Moe.
You have the West Coast Conference Finals, Gonzaga St. Mary's, you already mentioned. That's going to be a good game over there in Vegas.
Shocking.
What? Shocking that you know things?
No, shocking that they're actually going to be in. Mm-hmm. It's St. Mary's and Gonzaga. I'm shocked.
You're so surprised.
I watched San Francisco twice this season in person. Mm-hmm. And I remember going in to see them play the first time. They played Clemson pretty tough, and then Clemson pulled away from them in the second half. Penn State played Clemson a lot. Clemson's a good team, by the way. I mean, you want to know why Clemson's a good team? Clemson is a really good defensive team. And in ACC, all right. But I thought San Francisco, because Gonzaga, you knew that they weren't as good as they were. Mm-hmm. And I thought they had a shot at getting to the championship game in the WCC. But then when I watched them play in person, I kind of came away thinking that they're the third best team out there because I was like, something missing with that San Francisco team. Clemson, look, North Carolina is sitting in this spot. North Carolina really struggles. You want to know why they are where they are right now?
What's that?
They really struggle with teams that play really good defense. So they struggle with Duke, right? Because Duke is Duke.
Yes.
For everything you want to talk about with Cooper Flagg and how they shoot the ball and everything like that, they're a really good defensive team. Obviously, I saw Clemson play twice in person this year. Yeah. They are a terrific defensive team. All right, terrific. Now here's the other part. North Carolina does not have a center because Armando Bacot was there for 22 years.
Yeah.
All right. But they don't have a center that changes the game for them. In other words, I can't call a timeout.
Yeah.
All right. The other team is on a 7-8 point run. I can't call a timeout and run a set where I get the ball to my center and I've got a better than average shot of getting points out of it, breaking the run and stabilizing the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. North Carolina doesn't have that. They don't have that kind of player.
Yeah.
So they have to run up and down the floor and get into some of these shootouts. But when they play somebody that's really good defensively, or they play somebody that has a competent center, which both Duke and Clemson do,
it makes it a nightmare.
Now it becomes a big problem. They're 1-10 in quad one games. I mean, Penn State has more quad one wins. In fact, Penn State's played more quad one games than Duke.
By the way,
they played more quad one games than St. John's.
Wrapping up, by the way, you mentioned multiple players so far. The ACC all defensive team, we had Chucky Hepburn of Louisville, Cooper Flagg, of course, Duke, Jaden Zachary, Clemson, BJ Edwards, SMU, Sion James, Duke, and Zach Austin from Pitt. The all-rookie team, you have Cooper Flagg, Con Knuppel, Kaman Malawach from Duke, and then Ian Jackson from North Carolina, and Jeremiah Wilkinson from Cal. And then the awards given out, of course, to Coach of the Year, Pat Kelsey of Louisville. You had Player of the Year, Cooper Flagg. Most Improved, Donald Hand of Boston College. And then Sixth Man, Jeremiah Wilkinson from Cal. So those awards were given out. Thought it was timely considering the conversation, which, of course, we'll discuss more so tomorrow.
Is Notre Dame in it?
Is Notre Dame in it? I believe they are the 13 seed in the AC tournament. They should play today. Okay. Syracuse is the 14. They've got, I believe, Florida State. So that is going to be going on today.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.